The final mastering for Daydream Nation was actually a complete rush job because the band had to clear out of the studio so that it could be set up for the next artist to record in there, Patti Smith. True story. Today for Full Album Friday, we're going back to 1988 to check out the amazing Daydream Nation album from Sonic Youth. While most people think that the alt-rock movement was an advent of the early 1990s, you're wrong. Throughout the early and mid-80s, bands like R.E.M., Dinosaur Jr., The Meat Puppets, Throwing Muses, and so many others were paving the way for bands that didn't like the traditional rock format. These bands were usually called independent rock, or underground rock, or so many other names, and then suddenly it became alt-rock, thanks to some marketing guy who just liked the word better. But amongst all those other bands, no other was quite like Sonic Youth. And Daydream Nation can be argued as the album that turned underground bands into absolutely airworthy sound. For me, this album is all about tone. It's raw and it's grimy like nothing else out there. And I really feel like it's the first time the band got everything in their musical arsenal clicking on the same record. I'm not saying their first few records weren't good, but there's just this sonic harmony that they achieved there that they hadn't gotten to yet. It's kind of like where those noise rock roots they have move into a completely different musical universe. Lee Ronaldo is just out of his mind amazing on guitar from beginning to end on this album, and when he clicks in with Thurston Moore, it's just fantastic. And honestly, once you hear a song like Cross the Breeze, it's sort of all you need to understand these two and their place amongst the greatest guitarists. Again, it's that combination of pure noise and stunning progression that make all of these songs so unique. It's that fuzz and that crunch that we all take for granted these days. This is kind of where it all starts to get big. But there's also that frantic, almost crazed bass performance from Kim Gordon. That tension that she's able to create. Anybody who knows this album knows what I'm talking about, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you gotta go listen to the record. It's in that rhythm section where Sonic Youth's punk roots can really be found. It's a bit Buzzcocks, a bit Joy Division, and then it's a bit something you've never heard before. I mean, these guys clearly understood mood like nobody else did, and yet they managed to pull it off perfectly within a largely noise-style setting. Just check out the song Providence. That is genius. Of course, you also have Thurston Moore's vocals. It's a bit Iggy Pop, a bit Lou Reed, a bit Ian Curtis. He can get confrontational, metaphorical, introspective, or he can get really in-your-face angry. He's able to run the whole gamut and do it all superbly. And he's also able to bring this presence that so many others have attempted and failed to copy over the years. Now, when Kim takes lead vocals, the bottom just falls out on this record in terms of depth, and oh, you just cannot play this loudly enough. I'd be doing an injustice to talk about this record and not spotlight the track Teenage Riot. As many people point to this song specifically as the beginning of the alt-rock movement, and honestly, I'm not going to argue that very much. It's got a killer groove and a great riff to it, and they really haven't invented the proper volume that you should play this at. You cannot play it loudly enough. There's just no way around it. Daydream Nation is a touchstone for almost every band of the last 20 years. And at the same time, it marks a clear point in the progression of music history when things changed. And if somehow this record isn't in your collection, you really need to change that right now. Thank me later.